Michael Oher is looking out for himself, and it's about time. Those are the words of national columnist for The Athletic. I had to make sure I got that correctly. Let me repeat that in case you didn't hear me the first time. National columnist for The Athletic. He's in the building. We love him so
Mm.
much. Jim Trotter, can I first and foremost say I'm so happy for you? Like it's just
Ah,
it makes me happy when I see your name, your quotes, the byline, all of that. It's just I'm very happy. Are you happy?
I'm very happy. Number one, I'm
I
happy to
love
be with you ladies. You know how
that.
much of a big fan I am, so we're gonna have this mutual admiration society right here. So, look, I'm about to celebrate my 60th trip around this earth on Monday, and when I
Wow.
look back now and I see young ladies such as yourself holding it down the way that you are, it lets me know that when I get out of this thing, which is not too far down the line, we're gonna be all right. So I appreciate you
Oh,
all.
you don't look a day over 25, Jim.
That's right. That's
Well, I
right.
wish I wish I felt like I was only a day over 25.
Well, listen, I just read your statement from, or one of your lines rather, from the Michael Orr story, and this story has been crazy. It's kind of come out of left
Yeah,
field. No pun intended.
yeah,
It's been disheartening, and it's been very much back and forth. So for people who are unfamiliar with the situation, a quick summary. The Blind Side was a movie that Sandra Bullock won the Oscar for. She did an incredible job, and it was based on the Tuohys, who were allegedly the adoptive parents of Michael Oher, who was this underprivileged kid that they kind of went ahead and put through school, and then got to college, and then the NFL draft. He ended up going to Baltimore and had a successful NFL career. And now it's coming out, and there's been tidbits in between. Michael Oher has said in his book and on other occasions, he did not like his portrayal. For people who are unfamiliar, he was portrayed as this not that bright kid who had nothing going for him, and these people changed his life. But when you dig a little deeper, he was a 5-star high school recruit, one of the best in the country, so the talent was there. But he is now saying that he was not aware that they did not legally adopt him, but instead put him under a conservatorship. The Tuohys come back and say, listen, we put you under the conservatorship because legally we could not adopt you as an adult. Now Michael Oher's words from his book are coming back to haunt him, where he is saying that he was aware of the conservatorship, but he was just happy that legally, in some way, shape, or form, that it meant that they were a family that he felt they always were. The Tuohys are also accusing him of a $15 million shakedown prior to filing the suit. So a lot of back and forth, a lot of he said, she said. I mean, Jim, what do you make of all of this?
yeah. First, let me address the point you make about what Michael Orr said in his book. And it's funny that people will cherry pick things. What he said in his book, and I'll read the quote to you from his book. He said, Sean and Leanne would be named as my legal conservators. They explained to me that it means pretty much the exact same thing as adoptive parents. Look, I don't expect an 18-year-old to know what a conservatorship is. I don't expect many adults to know what a conservatorship is. And so, from that standpoint, what Michael Orr said is that he was just looking to be part of a family. And they had told him that this would make them family official. So, from that point, I don't hold that against him at all. There is a lot of, as you said, back and forth here. And ultimately, what I say is, as it relates to the finances, we're going to find out who's telling the truth because there has to be a paper trail of who received what.
Mm,
So, from that standpoint, I'm just waiting on the probate court to go through that and look at it and then tell us no, the Tuohys were paid this for the rights to the blind side. The family received this. Michael Orr received this or did not receive this. At some point, that's going to come out. In
right.
between, what I also wonder with this is, look, if it's true that Michael Oher did not understand the meaning of conservatorship and only learned of exactly what the details are in that back in February of this year, and his feelings maybe are now hurt that this group that he thought was family, that he called family, truly and legally is not his family. Are there hurt feelings behind this as well in this discussion of what's going on? I don't know. And none of us know. And that's why I was so reticent to write a column on this for a few days, I kept telling our place, we don't know enough to speak on this. But
Right.
because everyone's talking about it, obviously folks want to read about it. And so my take is, look, this guy has been exploited, in my opinion, throughout his life. When you look at what Hollywood did to him, they say based on a true story. You ladies know, based on a true story doesn't mean that every fact in that movie is true, or every piece
Right.
of information in that movie is true. It means that they can take an element of it, and then, as Hollywood will do, make it into whatever they want for dramatic purposes to sell the product. And that appears to be what happened here, at least from what Michael is saying. So when Michael Lewis, the author of the book, comes out shortly after the book's released and is asked how Michael Oher is doing while at the Ole Miss, and Michael Lewis says, well, he's on the dean's list at Ole Miss. That should tell you all you need to know about Ole Miss. It sounds to me like he's there saying that Michael Oher is not very smart,
Yes.
which anyone knows. Ole Miss is dummies don't get into Ole Miss, and dummies
That's
don't
right.
make the dean's list at Ole Miss. So
Right.
that to me was a shot at Michael Oher. So I'm going on here, but there are a lot of layers to it. I'm just happy he's standing up for himself and speaking his truth.
Right.
I gotta say, I didn't learn about a conservatorship until Britney Spears in the past year. I
Right.
mean, I didn't know anything about what that entailed. And I think there's so much behind like with Britney, for example, we were only let into a segment of what was going on with her. And I kind of feel like that's how this movie is now, where it's this beautiful film that I just actually watched a month ago and was bawling by myself in my room like a baby. And I actually did a little bit of my own investigative work. And I was like, I wonder how this family is doing, to find out that he's unfollowed them on Instagram. They weren't at his wedding. So I kind of knew something had to have been going on. And then when all of this started to trickle out, I was like, okay, there is way more to this story than we even realize. Honestly, now I feel like it's not The Blind Side, it's Blindsided. I feel like that's what the name of the movie should have been, because I feel like that's probably how he feels at this point in time. Like, he was totally blindsided by what that relation. I think I would sit there and go, what did you bring me into this family for? Was it out of the goodness of your heart, or was there an ulterior motive here?
And I think for me, and Jim, I want to ask you this. I think for me, one of the things that like I'm so taken aback by is like, let's go ahead and implement the facts that we do know into this film, right? Instead of saying they adopted him, let's say they put him under the conservatorship because legally they couldn't adopt him. And that was told in the story. Let's say that he was a 5-star recruit. He was. And you still helped him out because he was still in some way, shape, or form underprivileged. Let's put that in the story. Those facts don't make that story any less sentimental.
Exactly.
It makes it more authentic. It makes it true. But for me, it doesn't make it not still heartfelt. Like, had those facts been in the story, I still would have walked away saying, wow, this was a kid with so much talent, so much going for him. And this family really helped them out. This is a beautiful story. So it's icky to me that like you felt you needed to overcompensate for something that was already beautiful to begin with if you would have told the true story. But before we move on from this, there are
let me say this to you, Ashley, though.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Let me say this to you. But this is the history of Hollywood, right?
Right.
There always has to be a white savior. And that's what annoys me most. Even when I watched this movie originally when it came out, knowing that they could say it's based on a true story, but then compromise what the true details are. There is always in Hollywood this need to have a white savior to save Black people, to save disadvantaged Black people and whatnot. And so I asked a couple of friends the other day, I said, name me a movie or a TV show where a wealthy Black family takes in an impoverished white child, right? A reverse different strokes, if you will. We couldn't come up with one. We couldn't come up with one.
I can't think of one.
But it was the remake of Annie, though. Remember, Jamie Foxx was Daddy Warbucks.
Yes.
Oh no,
Shout
but
out
Annie was
Annie.
Black in that. But Annie was Black in that movie. Never mind. That doesn't count.
See, so I'm saying to you, so Hollywood is complicit in all of this. The other thing I will say to you, if the Tuohys had nothing to hide about this conservatorship, why in their book did they never mention the word conservatorship, but yet on at least 30 occasions referenced adoption or something that related to adoption? right? So I don't get it. If you have
Yeah.
nothing to hide as it relates to a conservatorship, why in almost a 300-page book did the word conservatorship not come up one time?
Quick question before we move
Very
on
interesting.
to a little bit of current football. There are accusations accusing the Tuohys of possibly being boosters for Ole Miss, and that is
They're
going
alums.
to play a part. They are alums. They are accusing them of being boosters as well. Any information that you can tell us that you've done so far on researching, talking to people, any truth behind that?
No, I can't speak to that. And that's another reason I wanted to wait for all these things to come out and have access to the Tuohys to ask them some of these questions. So look, it's just curious, right? That they
Mm-hmm.
would take in this kid who has this athletic ability, comes from a disadvantaged background, and then put him in a situation where the one school he winds up at is a school that both of them attended and where the father played basketball. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that there is something nefarious here, but I am saying it's just curious without knowing all of the facts.
For sure. Well, we're going to definitely keep an eye on this story, but moving on, we're also keeping an eye on all of these fights going around the NFL
Oh my
during
Lord.
training camp. I mean, teammates are
yeah.
fighting teammates. We got joint practice fights. We got Micah Parsons throwing haymakers at his own guys. I mean, Jim, first of all, if you're gonna fight, take your helmet off. I mean, like, listen, protective gear in fights is kind of a cop out, but I mean, my God, football just started. What's the deal?
First of all, to your point about helmets, I've never understood why players would fight while wearing helmets, and I never understand why coaches would in any way condone a fight taking place when players have helmets on, knowing that one of your key guys could end up getting hurt, breaking a hand or whatever. So from that standpoint, look, the thing that's going on here is that fights in training camp are as old as football itself. Even fights among teammates in training camp are as old as football itself. I can give you examples of when I was a beat writer, what I saw. So you're together all this time, you get a little edgy, from being bored, doing the same thing over and over, going against the same guy all the time. And then what happens is when you do joint workouts, now you have some coaches who do push the needle a little bit and tell their guys what they're looking for in terms of physicality, all of that, and think that it makes them tougher and brings them together. And we even heard Coach Prime this week talking about it's not one, it's all. All have to be in on something like this. And so you see the other guys coming in. To be honest with you, Ash, I think it's much ado about nothing. I think it's entertainment for us. Gives us something to talk about. But at the end of the day, as long as no one gets hurt, it really doesn't mean much.
Yeah. Micah, stop throwing haymakers, man. Please.
Right. I just have a bone to pick, though, with anybody ever out there who says that women are overly emotional. I'm going to just start pulling up joint practice film and say, hold on a minute, because these grown men seem to be using these practices as therapy. I mean, they're taking cheap shots. Mark Andrews throwing somebody to the ground and straining their rotator cuff. I mean, listen, I've been very emotional most of my life, and I can get very intense. If Ashley and I got into it, I don't think body slamming her would ever be my go-to reaction. And listen, men are just aggressive and they get it out there. I'm just saying, I've never been to a practice as an athlete myself growing up where it gets this crazy. So anyone that thinks women are just too emotional or whatever, pull up some joint practice, aka WWE film, and I think that point is officially debunked because they are just.
You don't even need to just bring up joint practice. Look what James Harden did. That's emotional itself. Don't ever call me emotional. Look what James Harden just did and went viral. But I mean, listen, speaking of emotional, when we talk emotions, hate is a strong emotion. And it's a fine line between love and hate. And Liv is definitely on the side of hate when it comes to Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Liv, I mean,
No, here, listen,
It's
okay,
Aaron
because
Rodgers and the Dallas Cowboys this year. I don't know. It's a
okay, well,
thing. It's a thing.
first of all, it's always
Like,
the Dallas Cowboys. I will I will raise hell to Cowboys fans till the day that I probably die. Now, I didn't realize that at this age in my life, I would find a best friend like Ashley, who happens to be a very large Cowboys fan. So it's, it's put a strain on our relationship here and there, whatever, we'll deal with it. But I got to tell you, I don't even want to say, I think one thing for me working in the media and always having to talk about these teams pre-NFL season, I'm just sick of having Rodgers' name in my mouth. It feels like he is always a headline, whether it's some whether he's on a darkness retreat or he, wants to leave Green Bay. Oh, just kidding. I'm here to stay. Oh, I might be retiring. There's always a headline regarding Rodgers. And the only thing I have to say about the Rodgers Jets situation is, to me right now, it is do or die. I am done talking about Rodgers after this year if he doesn't have success with the Jets. He's getting the hard knocks attention, which I think is showing a more lovable side to him. Now you add Dalvin Cook, an elite, some would argue top 3 defense. To me, Rodgers had the same offense last season with the Packers that he does this season. And I would argue he had a better O-line in Green Bay last year. So again, there's just all this hype, all this conversation. I feel like we always talk about Rodgers, but to me, you have everything you need. You're a back-to-back MVP. If you can't do it now, I think your 2011 Super Bowl win will be your last. That's how I feel. Ooh. I'm just over talking about Aaron Rodgers. Ooh. It just feels like it's every year. So sorry, that was a vent. I'll get off my soapbox and let you take it away.
Are you buying the Jets stock? Are you high? Are you low? Where do you sit on this?
See, I'm about to get in trouble here. I'm high on him. I'm real high on him, to be honest with you. From this standpoint, number one, defensively, as you say, they are really talented.
Yeah.
And they had some young players there last year who were a year older, and they should be even better this year. Offensively, when you add a Dalvin Cook with Breece Hall coming back, that running game should be pretty good. Now, I know there are issues up front on the offensive line, but what they will do is they will game plan to try and protect those areas of weakness for Aaron. The other thing here with Aaron, and I understand fatigue from hearing his name, but when I look at him physically this year, what it says to me is that he has invested into this season. When you looked at him last year, his body, he looked like a guy who didn't put in any work in the offseason and just showed up. And Aaron may get mad at me for saying that, but that's what he looked like. And so when I have seen him this year, not only attending OTAs and everything else, but I see how he is leaned up and is committed. And if you know Aaron, I can guarantee you that there is some, he wants to put this to the Packers. Let me put it that way, and show them that they made a mistake. And I believe he is going to have a really good year. I do, because of the talent around him, the fact he doesn't have to carry the load, the fact that defensively they are so good. I think he's going to have a really strong year, and I think the Jets are going to be right there again. The caveat being if they are healthy.
Look, he's petty like you, Liv. That you guys have similarities. You should be BFFs, you and Aaron Rodgers. I do, much to Liv's point though. She mentioned Hard Knocks. And I think something for me that I've noticed even before Hard Knocks, even before OTAs, during even basketball season, he's taking a different effort in his young guys than he did last year. One of the things I did not like about Aaron Rodgers last season was he had this new group of young, impressionable guys that he really had to form a chemistry with. And I don't know if he was just mentally and physically 1 foot out the door, but he did not really embrace them like he did with a Randall Cobb back in the day or a Jordy Nelson. And you're seeing him be a different type of leader this time around. He's going to basketball games with these guys. He's got handshakes with these guys. He's wearing chains with these guys. Like, it's a totally different quarterback. He seems happy. Like, he just seems like someone who got out of a toxic relationship and just found the love of their life. So before he's invested. Before we let you go, Jim, listen, I'm gonna ask for the stamp. Is this a Super Bowl team this year? Are they going all the way?
Oh, I think they have the ability. I'm not ready to say they're going to the Super Bowl. Truthfully, Ash, I really haven't even thought about it yet in terms of who are my two teams to pick for the Super Bowl. I'll wait till the end of
Okay.
preseason to do that and see the rosters. But as constructed now, do they have the ability, the talent? Yeah, I think they do. Absolutely, I do. I think the couple of things here in terms of when you talk about Super Bowl, I truly believe. Number one, you got to have defense. Number one, or 1A, you have to have quarterback, right? You have to have elite quarterback play to win a championship, I believe. Aaron Rodgers is that. I don't think he's the same Aaron Rodgers as he was a few years ago, but again, I say he doesn't have to carry the load now. So they will have quarterback play. They have defense. And the other thing that I love right now is that they have a running game. So, for instance, if they get up in a game in the fourth quarter and you have a defense that can perform, you can go to that 4-minute offense and turn to your running game and say, Hall and Cook, take over here, chew up the clock, run it out. Let's go home with the win. They just have everything that you need right now if that offensive line plays well enough for them.
Are you buying more stock in the Jets or Livs Broncos?
Don't.
Jets.
I already
The
know the
Jets.
answer. I don't need to hear it.
Jets
I don't need to hear
question.
it. Back it up.
Jets
I don't
without
want to hear it.
Let's ride.
I think I am too, actually,
Ooh.
unfortunately.
Listen, Russell's got a lot going on. A new baby on the
my
way. He's going to be okay
gosh.
either way. It's just the Broncos ain't riding to a Super Bowl, but that's okay.
Yeah, no, don't worry. And don't worry, us Broncos fans don't believe it either. We're not, I'm on the smart side of the Broncos fan base. I don't think that's coming anytime soon. So
I think it will change if maybe he lets his guys wear bucket hats and sunglasses. I don't know. Maybe that's what they're missing,
Right.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget, you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.